A man using the name R.C. Christian approached the Elberton Granite Finishing Company in Georgia with an unbelievable plan. In June of 1979, he presented them with 10 pages of specifications and plans along with a scale model detailing exactly what he wanted. Joe Finley, who represented the company in the deal, thought Christian's plan was crazy, so he attempted to discourage him. Instead of turning down the contract, they instead offered him a quote magnitudes higher than any other project they had done previously. To their surprise, Christian accepted. The group he represented seemingly had unlimited funds. Allegedly, the specifications called for the stones to not only be etched with the 10 inscriptions, but they would also function as a calendar. They signed the contracts and began construction, agreeing to destroy all of the plans upon completion and to keep his true identity along with those of the group he represented a secret. The hunt for land began and they settled on a plot belonging to a local farmer. A deal was made with Christian agreeing to grant them lifetime grazing rights on the land even after completion. Although in 1981, fencing around the stones was constructed because the animals were using them as scratching posts. Word spread during construction and detractors began to spring up. A local minister even warned that the site would one day be used for satanic sacrifices. After costing upwards of $100,000, the Guidestones were unveiled the next year on March 22, 1980. The Master of Ceremonies read a note from the group behind the funding. It read, "In order to avoid debate, we, the sponsors of the Georgia Guidestones, have a simple message for the human beings, now and for the future. We believe our precepts are sound and they must stand on their own merits." Standing at 19 feet tall at its highest point using nearly 240,000 pounds of stone, the project was complete. A tablet placed in front of the main structure read, "Let these be Guidestones to an age of reason," with some drawing a line between this and Thomas Paine's The Age of Reason, who famously also wrote Common Sense before the American Revolution. Also etched on the tablet was a claim that there was a time capsule buried beneath the structure, but the date for when to dig it up and open it were curiously missing. Whether or not this was intentional is unknown. Etched on the upright stones were the 10 guidelines. Maintain humanity under 500 million in perpetual balance with nature. Guide reproduction wisely, improving fitness and diversity. Unite humanity with a living new language. Rule passion, faith, tradition, and all things with tempered reason. Protect people and nations with fair laws and just courts. Let all nations rule internally, resolving external disputes in a world court. Avoid petty laws and useless officials. Balance personal rights with social duties. Prize truth, beauty, love, seeking harmony with the infinite. Be not a cancer on the earth. Leave room for nature. Leave room for nature. These were written in English, Spanish, Hindi, Swahili, Hebrew, Arabic, Chinese, and Russian so that the majority of humanity could read them. Thanks to the location's dynamic views of both the east and the west for sunrise, the plans to make the site function as a sort of calendar were successful. At noon each day, the sun shines through a hole in the capstone, the light cast on the center stone showing the current day of the year. On the center stone there was also an eye-level hole drilled from north to south in such a way that the North Star would always be visible through it. Since the construction completed, the Guidestones received an estimated 20,000 visitors a year. While it was a popular destination for the small Georgia community, there were still those that were against the site. Some conservative Christians went as far as calling the guidelines the 10 Commandments of the Antichrist. In 2008, the stones were vandalized by spray paint with things such as "Death to the New World Order" and "Jesus will beat you, Satanist" written on them. They were again defaced in 2014, which finally caused the county to install security cameras. These would be important just a few years later. You might have noticed that I have been referring to the Guidestones in the past tense. In the very early hours of July 6, 2002, an explosion reverberated through the area.
A monument considered by some conservative Christians to be satanic was badly damaged by an explosive device. One of the 4 granite panels on the Georgia Guidestones monument was reduced to rubble.
The upright stones that was etched in Swahili and Hindi was destroyed, with most of the others being damaged in the blast. An investigation began immediately. Ownership of the site was transferred over to the county soon after the project was finished, so the site was considered a public building. This meant that the bomber would face up to 20 years if they were ever caught. But to this day, no motive or suspects have ever been publicly identified. The Georgia Bureau of Investigations determined that the remaining standing stones were beyond saving and would pose a safety risk to the public, so it was decided that they would be dismantled. After the demolition, the ground was dug up in order to find the time capsule that was thought to have been there, but supposedly no evidence of one was ever found. The mayor of Elberton said the town planned on rebuilding the Guidestones exactly as they once were. But just a month later, the city council instead voted to begin the process of transferring land ownership back to the family that originally owned it and sold it to R.C. Christian. Today, the surviving pieces of the stones are allegedly being stored in a secure location. There is some hope that one day they will be displayed at the nearby Elberton Granite Museum. People still make trips to the site today, but what was once a curiosity of the American South and a place that saw upwards of 20,000 visitors per year is now just an empty slab surrounded by a fence in the Georgia countryside. It is alleged that Christian said the stones were instructions to rebuild society after a cataclysmic event. But until one or more of the sponsors come forward, it's unlikely that we will ever know who was behind the Georgia Guidestones and what their true intentions were.